You may now start, sir.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So this very evening, we are going to discuss we are going to review on social studies major. Okay, and um, this will focus on Philippine history with politics, economics, and also histories, Philippine history, and geography. Okay. So we're now going to proceed. Good evening once again. So can you comment down your area? Good evening once again. By the way, I am Gilmore Cantal, your lecturer for this evening. Okay, so teachers, you can comment down the school or your place. Okay, and now we'll start. On December 21, 1898, President William McKinley announced his decision to keep the Philippines as an American colonial position. Let us take note that President William McKinley was the US president during the Treaty of Paris. Okay? The Treaty of Paris was signed on December 1898, and he was the president then who described or who made a decision to keep the Philippines under American colony. Okay? And he described this mission as benevolent assimilation. Okay. Not the Philippine Commission, not the Treaty of Paris, and not the Treaty of Tordesillas. Okay. Now we're going to discuss each of these items so that you will have a background, and if ever there are questions that will lead to these answers, no? Hopefully during the actual let exam, so it will be easy for you to answer. Okay. So once again, teachers, you are free to comment or send your answers, even though there's already a red marking signifying the correct answer. Okay? Sige, let's proceed. Take note that the decision of President William McKinley to keep the Philippines under American colony is called benevolent assimilation. Okay, good evening, Miss Cherry May Olyamot. Okay, now let's discuss. Take note that there were two Philippine commissions during the American period. Okay, the first one is the Sherman Commission, and the second one is the Taft Commission. Take note of that one. The Sherman Commission was the first Philippine commission, and it was headed by Dr. Jacob Sherman. Okay, who led the first commission of the Philippines? In the Philippines, Dr. Jacob Sherman. And they arrived in Manila on March 4, 1899. Good evening, Miss Rhea. Good evening, Mr. Clifford Arias. Okay. The first Philippine Commission, take note of that one, was headed by Dr. Jacob Sherman. There were only two commissions during the American period. Okay. Second is the Taft Commission. It was headed by William Howard Taft. That's the second Philippine Commission. And the thing that we must remember in the Taft Commission is that it established a judicial system. Okay? And including the creation of the Supreme Court. Okay? And it was actually Cayetano Arellano who became the first Supreme Court Chief Justice. Okay, we have here from Canlaon City, Negros Oriental. Good evening, Mr. Anthony. Okay. Good evening, Miss Alert Miss Tessie. Okay. Again, there were two Philippine commissions during the American period. The first one is the Skerman Commission, headed by Dr. Jacob Skerman. Take note of that one. Arrived in Manila on March 4, 1899. When was the Treaty of Paris signed? December 10, 1898. Okay. And President McKinley decided to keep the Philippines as an American colony December 21, 1898. Okay. Signed already the Treaty of Paris that the Philippines will be ceded to US. Okay. And United States paid $20 million to Spain. Okay. Let's proceed. Dr. Jacob Skerman, head of the first Philippine Commission. The second was William Howard Taft. Okay. Arrived on June 30 during the 1900s. Okay. Oh, Mr. Arias, December 10, 1898. Oh, the Treaty of Paris. Okay. Take note, one thing that we should remember during the Taft Commission is that it established a judicial system in the Philippines. Okay. The Treaty of Paris was a treaty of peace between US and the Kingdom of Spain. Okay. It's a treaty, between US and Spain. The President of the United States of America signed in Paris December 10, 1898. The United States will pay to Spain the sum of $20 million within 3 months. Okay. Bright kunos, Mr. Arias, ingon pas Dave. Okay. Next is the Treaty of Tordesillas. Take note, if the Treaty of Paris is a treaty between US and Spain, the Treaty of Tordesillas was a treaty between Spain and Portugal. Take note. And it is a treaty whereby Spain and Portugal divided the world using a demarcation line, divided the newly discovered lands outside of Europe between the Portuguese Empire and the Spanish Empire, or the Crown of Castile. Okay. So when we say the head of the first Philippine Commission, Dr. Jacob Skerman. When we are going to talk about the head of the second Philippine Commission, William Howard Taft. Okay. The Taft Commission is known for establishing the judicial system in the Philippines. Okay, including the creation of the Supreme Court. Okay. When we talk about the Treaty of Paris, it's a treaty between US and Spain. The Treaty of Tordesillas, it's a treaty between Spain and Portugal. Okay. Let's proceed. Oh, he was the last military governor of the Philippines after Manila fell into the hands of the Americans. Okay. Take note that there was a Spanish-American War. No? And later, there was an Philippine-American War. And when Manila fell into the hands of the Americans, they then established a military government. Okay, and there were 3 military governors of the Philippines. Okay, and the last was General Arthur MacArthur, the last military governor of the Philippines. Okay, Sherman, head of the First Philippine Commission. Wesley Merritt, General Wesley Merritt, first military governor. And he was the general who testified in the Treaty of Paris before the peace commissioners. Okay. And the second military governor was Elwil Otis. And third and the last military governor was MacArthur. After the establishment of a military government in the Philippines, a civil government was then established. And General Douglas MacArthur was the last military governor of the Philippines under American period. Okay. Next. Okay, good evening once again, teachers. Okay. You can comment down the place you're from. Okay, where are you from? Okay. Next question. He was the Governor General where he ordered a systematic distribution of family names for the Filipinos to use listed in the Catalogo Alfabetico de Apellidos, because when the Spaniards came in the Philippines, there were no sure names, used by the native Filipinos. So it was Governor General Narciso Claveria who devised a systematic list of family names. No, they were not allowed to choose their family names. There were listed specific lists of family names that will be chosen, listed in the Catalogo Alfabetico de Apellidos. Okay. It was Governor General Narciso Claveria. Take note, Narciso Claveria, Catalogo Alfabetico de Apellidos. What about for Dispuhol? Dispuhol was the Governor General who? Saman. He was the Governor General who exiled Rizal to Dapitan. And Governor Camilo Pulavieja was the Governor General who signed the execution of Rizal. What about for Diego de los Reyes? Governor General Diego de los Reyes was the last Governor General of the Philippines. The last Governor General. Just remember that one. The last. Narciso Claveria, systematic list of family names for Filipinos. Dispuhol, exiled Rizal to Dapitan. He was the one who sent Rizal to Dapitan. Pulavieja, he signed the execution of Dr. Jose Rizal. De los Reyes, the last Governor General of the Philippines. Okay. He was the Governor General when the Spanish-American War took event. Okay. Head of the First Philippine Commission, Dr. Jacob Skerman. Head of the Second Philippine Commission, William Howard Taft. Okay. During the civil government under Taft, when Taft became the civil governor of the Philippines, actually he was the first civil governor. Okay, the first civil governor, William Howard Taft. he was the head. He was the head of the Second Philippine Commission. Okay. Known for establishing a judicial system in the country. But before the establishment of a civil government in the Philippines, a military government was first established, right? Who was the first military governor? Wesley Merritt. Who was the second military governor? Elwil Otis. And the third and the last military governor before a civil government was being established, General Douglas MacArthur. The first civil governor, William Howard Taft. And William Howard Taft declared March 2, 1903 as the Philippine Census Day. Okay. Philippine Census Day. Take note of this one, teachers. And it was the first census during the American period, not during the Spanish period. Okay. Because during the Spanish regime, I think there were two official census, okay, that happened, okay, during the Spanish period. But during the American period, this was the first census that happened March 2, 1903, or considered as the Census Day. Okay. Odara. Now, teachers, I said a while ago that March 2, 1903 was not the first census of the Philippines. It was the first census during the American period. But when was the first census of the Philippines done? It was done during the Spanish period in 1591. Okay? And they used the taxes paid, the tributes, okay. March 2, 1903, the first census during the American period. December 31, 1877, take note, it was the first official census of the Philippines, and it was during the Spanish period. December 31, 1877. March 2, 1903, the first census during the American period. Okay. December 31, 1877, it was the first official census of the Philippines during the Spanish period. Okay. 1591, the first census. But first official census, December 31, 1877. Do not be confused with that one. March 2, first census of the Philippines during the American period. 1591, first census of the Philippines. First census, because we were under Spanish period, no? Spanish regime. But the first official census of the Philippines were records of the total living inhabitants of the country was being collected through parishes and Kabisa de Barangay to the Gobernadorcillos was on December 31, 1877. 1939 was the census during the Commonwealth period, during the term of Manuel L. Quezon. Okay. Take note. We're going to review this one later on. Okay. March 2, 1903, during the American period, the first census day of the Philippines during the American period. 1591, the first census of the Philippines, the first ever census done in the Philippines. That was during the Spanish period. December 31, 1877 was the first official census of the Philippines. 1939 was during the Commonwealth period under Manuel L. Quezon, the second census of the Philippines. Okay. Let's proceed. As part of the preparation for the election of the members of the First Philippine Assembly, okay, um, during this one, the Americans are trying then to give monopoly to the Filipino people. Okay, they were given the chance to elect their representatives for the First Philippine Assembly. So some measures of freedom was given to Filipinos, and one is to form political parties. Actually, it was during the American period where political parties were recognized. Okay. And the first officially recognized political party in the Philippines was the Federal Party. Take note, Federal Party. And these three parties followed. Okay? The Nationalista Party, the Liberal Party, and the Democrata Party. All of these parties, these three parties here, the Nationalista, the Liberal Party, the Democrata Party, when you will be asked to tell the political parties during the American period where that advocates total freedom from the Americans, these three parties, you need to choose these three parties, okay? But the Federal Party is a political party that advocates Philippine annexation to United States. Okay? The advocates of Federal Party wanted the Philippines to be one of the states of America. Okay. Maganda siguro pag nangyari yun. Okay. Pro-American Filipinos, Trinidad H. Pardo de Tavera, Benito Ligarda, Jose Lozoriaga, Felipe Buencamino, and Cayetano Arellano. Okay? The first three names, Pardo de Tavera, Ligarda, and Lozoriaga, were members of the expanded Second Philippine Commission. Who was the head of the Second Philippine Commission? William Howard Taft. Okay. And during his tenure as civil governor of the Philippines, they expanded the programs of the government from being purely American-run government. They included now Filipinos, but pro-Americans. Now remember, I said a while ago that the Federal Party is a Filipino party. Okay? And it was actually the first official recognized political party. And it advocates Philippine annexation to the U.S. No, the advocates of Federal Party then wanted the Philippines to be part or to be one of the states of America. Okay. The five names suggested that the Filipinos were not prepared for self-government. They said, "Oh, the Filipinos are not prepared to run for their government. So it should be better that the Philippines be an annex to America or be one of the states of America. We will be given monopoly, but still under American government." Okay. By the way, the founder of Federal Party was Trinidad H. Pardo de Tavera. Okay. Founder of Federal Party, Trinidad H. Pardo de Tavera. The first officially recognized political party in the Philippines, Federal Party. It advocates that the Philippines be one of the states of America. Okay. Now, during the American period, okay, women wanted to voice out their rights. Okay. And there were women who advocates for the right to vote. And they're called suffragettes. Okay. pensionadas, they were also given chance to be scholars in the United States. That's pensionadas. And opposite is pensionados. They were male, okay? Mga lalaking Pilipino na nabigyan ng pagkakataong maging scholar doon sa Estados Unidos. Pensionados. Pensionadas, women scholars. Okay. Teachers, are you still there? Can you send a heart or some likes if you are still with me? Okay. Good evening, dear teachers. This. Okay, thank you. Let's proceed. Women who advocating for the right of women to vote, they're called suffragettes. Okay. Now let's talk about the first organic law for the Philippines enacted by US Congress. Take note, we're discussing here the period whereby the Philippines was still under American period, okay? The first organic law, because Jones Law is still an organic law for the Philippines, but the first organic law is Cooper Act, okay, or the Philippine Bill of 1902, okay? And it was the first bill enacted by the US Congress for the Philippines. Okay. Important features of Cooper Act. Take note, the Cooper Act removed Catholicism as a state religion. Okay? Take note, we're now discussing the Philippines during or an American period. We're no longer discussing the Philippines during the Spanish period. The first organic law, Cooper Act. One of the primary features of Cooper Act is removing the Catholicism as state religion. Okay? And establishes the Bill of Rights for Filipinos. Okay. Let's proceed. Oh, this one is very easy. He died in his young age, but he is honored now as the hero of the Battle of Tirad Pass, Gregorio del Pilar. Okay, Gregorio del Pilar or Goyong. Okay. Marcelo H. del Pilar, take note, founder of Tagalog Spanish newspaper, Diaryong Tagalog. He was also the editor of La Solidaridad. Okay? And one common feature of Marcelo H. del Pilar is that when he is writing, okay, he used the language of the masses. Okay, unlike Rizal, who most of the time wrote something in Spanish, Marcelo del Pilar wrote in the language of the masses. Oh, kaingat kayo, dasalan ng tuksuhan, kadakilaan ng Diyos, sagot ng Espanya sa hibik ng Pilipinas. Okay. But he had written books in Spanish and became famous. The two books written by Marcelo del Pilar in Spanish, La Soberania Monacal in Filipinas, La Frailocracia Filipinas. Cayetano Arellano, first Chief Justice during the American period. Take note that the Taft Commission established the first ever judicial system of the country. And it was Cayetano Arellano who became the first Chief Justice. Antonio Luna, he was not a general. No, he was not a military officer. But he became a general during Aguinaldo's term. No? During the revolutionary government of Aguinaldo. He was a pharmacist actually. Okay. Pero may common defect daw ang mga Luna. Short-tempered. Okay. And he was hacked. Yung pinatay si Luna, he was hacked by a bolo by a captain in the name of Pedrong Castilla from Cavite. Okay. Next, Quezon, who became the president of the Commonwealth, was against the Harry who is cutting law. Harry who is cutting law. Okay. He went to US and negotiated for the passing of a new law known as the Tidings-McDuffie Act. Actually, walang pinagkaiba. There's no big difference between the Harry who is cutting law and the Tidings-McDuffie law. But why is it that Quezon went to US and negotiated for a passing of the new law when in fact almost the Tidings-McDuffie Act is almost an exact copy of Harry who is cutting law. Okay? There were only few revisions and it was only about a military play, something like that, okay, of the US to stay here in the Philippines. Okay. Actually, Quezon is afraid that Osmeña will be famous compared to him, and he's afraid that Osmeña will become president instead of him. The Harry who is cutting law is a product of the Osrox mission, Osmeña Rojas mission. Okay? And it was actually the Harry who is cutting law that provided the 10-year period of self-government before US will give full independence, just like Tidings McDuffie. Okay? Take note. Tidings McDuffie is a product of Quezon mission. Osrox mission, Harry who is cutting law. Okay. The Quezon mission paved way for the enactment of Tidings McDuffie, signed by President Roosevelt, March 24, 1934. Okay, take note. Quezon mission, Tidings McDuffie. Osrox mission, Harry who is cutting law. Okay, Osmeña and Rojas, Manuel Rojas, Sergio Osmeña and Manuel Rojas. Okay. The Harry who is cutting law was the first US legislation. Okay? It was the first US legislation passed for the decolonization. Take note, it was President William McKinley who said that the Philippines should remain under American colony. Okay? That was 1899. Take note that for many years, until 1932, the Harry who is cutting law was the first U.S. legislation passed. Okay? Passed for the decolonization of the Philippines. Pa-shout out daw, Dan Joseph Andre Baretti. Good evening, sir. Shout out, Dan Joseph Andre Baretti. Good evening, sir. Thank you for being with us. Ma'am Abigail. Good evening. Okay. Next, it was passed by the U.S. Congress in December 1932, but vetoed by President Herbert Hoover. Okay. But Congress overrode the veto, and the following year, during the Roosevelt administration, the Harry who is cutting law was passed. Okay. Again, 1932, the U.S. Congress legislated the Harry who is cutting law to decolonize Philippines. It was vetoed by President Hoover, But the Congress overrode the veto and passed the Harry Ho is cutting law the following year, 1933, and it was during the presidency of Roosevelt. And maybe Roosevelt and Quezon has something in common because the following year, or maybe Quezon has this charisma and persuaded Roosevelt to sign a new law, which is Tidings-McDuffie, and be the law for the Philippine decolonization. Take note that the Tidings-McDuffie is almost identical to Harry Ho's cutting law. No, the revision was only about a military base. Okay, take note. The Harry Who is Cutting Law was the first law that provided that the end of the 10-year period, quote, to be named Commonwealth period, the Philippines will be granted independence, just like the Tidings McDuffie. Okay, walang pinagkaiba, almost identical. The only thing is the Tidings McDuffie have this revision of the military base. Okay. The Tidings McDuffie Act, product of Quezon Mission. The Harry Who is Cutting Law, Osrock's Mission. Okay. Teachers, give me a heart or a thumbs up if you're still with me. Okay, hope you're still following with me. The Jones Law. It replaced the Organic Act of 1902. What was the first Organic Act of the Philippines? Under U.S. legislation? That was the Cooper Act. Cooper Act. Okay. And the Jones Law replaced the 1902 Organic Law of the Philippines, and it provides the intention of the U.S. government for Philippine independence as soon as there is a stable government that was established. Okay. The Tidings McDuffie provided a 10-year transition period to independence during which the Commonwealth of the Philippines was established. Okay. Very good, Sir Dan Joseph. The first organic law, Cooper Act. Okay. Next, let's proceed. He is the last president of the Commonwealth and the first president of the Third Republic. Last president. There were 3 presidents during the Commonwealth period. Manuel Quezon, Sergio Osmeña, and last, Manuel Rojas, and then Philippine independence was given by the United States. Take note. Okay, again, there were 3 presidents during the Commonwealth period. Manuel L. Quezon, Sergio Osmeña, and then Manuel Rojas. Actually, Sergio Osmeña lose the election, okay, between him and Rojas. And it was during the tenure of Rojas as president that the Americans granted full independence for the Philippines. Oh, before we are going to proceed, what was the date that the Americans granted Philippine independence during the time or the tenure of Rojas as president? Sir Dan, Sir Clifford, Ma'am Abigail, Sir Dave, comment down your answer, teachers. Comment down your answers. Let's see. Oh, what was the date? Take note. Sige. Sige. July 4. The exact date, Ma'am Ann. July 4, 1946. Take note. That was the date when the Americans granted full independence. Okay? The Americans granted full independence for the Filipinos during the term of Rojas as president. Okay. After the Japanese War, let's move forward, fast forward. American, then Japanese period. After the Japanese War, Osmeña convened the Congress. Okay? And Rojas was elected as Senate President. Okay? April 23, 1946, not the first election under the American period. Okay? Um, April 23, 1946, Rojas was elected president. Okay? It was not the first election under American period. Okay? It's actually the second election, presidential election during the American period. Okay? So, April 23, 1946, Rojas became president of the Philippines, and the following month, July 4, 1946, was the date chosen by the American government to proclaim Philippine independence under President Harry Truman. Okay. July 4, 1946, that was the date that the Philippines was granted full independence from Americans. Okay. Rojas, the following presidents, up to Garcia. Okay, up to Garcia. Okay. From Rojas up to Garcia, the Philippines celebrated its Independence Day July 4, 1946. Okay. Good evening, Sir Lois, Vincent Lipon. Sir, good evening. Ma'am Cherilyn Ortez, good evening. Ma'am Jennifer, good evening. Okay. Rojas became the last president of the Commonwealth and the first president of the Third Republic. Okay. The First Republic was established by Aguinaldo. The Second Republic, during the Japanese occupation, when Philippines fell into the hands of the Japanese, it was Jose P. Laurel who became the president, and it was considered as the Second Philippine Republic. And after, when the Philippines won the war, when the Philippines and the Americans won the war against the Japanese, they established back the Commonwealth, and it was Osmeña who convened the Senate. Okay, and after that, there was an election, the first election for president after the Japanese period. Okay, and Rojas won the election, and he became the president. And then the Third Republic was established. From Rojas to Garcia, take note, Philippines celebrated our independence every 4th of July, 1946. But that's a new story when Diosdado Macapagal became the president. Okay. Who was the president of the U.S. when the Philippines was given full independence from the United States? President Harry Truman. July 4, 1946, under the tenure of Manuel Rojas as president, the last president of the Commonwealth and the first president of the Third Republic. The first presidential and vice presidential election was in 1935. Okay? This was the first election upon the enactment of the Tidings-McDuffie Act. Diba? A while ago, I said that the Harry Howes cutting law was almost the exact or identical to Tidings-McDuffie. But Quezon wanted to become the president. So he went back to US and asked President Roosevelt to enact a new law. And the product of Quezon mission was the Tidings-McDuffie Act. And the provisions of the Tidings-McDuffie Act suggested for a presidential election. Emilio Aguinaldo, run for president also during the time, for the presidency during the time. Quezon and Osmeña won. Aguinaldo lost the presidential battle. Also Aglipay. There were three presidents who ran during the 1935 Commonwealth election. Quezon and Osmeña, Aguinaldo and Raimundo Miliza, and Aglipay and his Vice President Nabong. Okay. Let's proceed. Okay, the First Republic, General Emilio Aguinaldo. The Second Republic, a Japanese-sponsored government, Josepe Laurel. The Third Republic, Manuel Rojas, Elpidio Quirino, Ramon Magsaysay, Carlos P. Garcia, Diosdado Macapagal, and Ferdinand E. Marcos. And after Marcos, we have the semi-federal government or semi-parliamentary government, the martial law period. Okay. I said a while ago that from Manuel Rojas up to Carlos P. Garcia, the Philippines celebrated its Independence Day every 4th of July. That is due to the fact that it was during July 4, 1946 that President Harry Truman gave full independence and self-governance, a self-government for the Philippines. Okay. The Third Republic, Manuel Rojas. Next is Elpidio Quirino, known for stabilizing the Philippine currency. He was the president who established the Central Bank of the Philippines. Take note, when we talk of establishment of the Central Bank of the Philippines, that's Elpidio Quirino. Okay. And also, he was haunted by the Hook Balahap. Okay. Signed into law the Magna Carta of Labor and the Minimum Wage Law. Okay, let us remember, Central Bank of the Philippines, Magna Carta of Labor, and the Minimum Wage Law. That's Elpidio Quirino. Ramon Magsaysay was Quirino's Secretary of National Defense. He go against his former boss, okay? Because Elpidio Quirino cannot keep his promise for the hooks. Okay. So, next, Ramon Magsaysay defeated the Hook Balahap, no? The leader of the Hook Balahap, Luis Taruk. And he was also the president who established the Agricultural Tenancy Act. Died due to plane crash at Mount Manunggal, Cebu, March 17, 1957. Okay. Third Republic gapunta ng mga president, Carlos P. Garcia, known for his Filipino First policy. Okay. Austerity program of the government, yung pagtitipid ng paggasta ng gobyerno. Okay? Pagtitipid ng paggasta ng pamahalaan, that's austerity program. Garcia is known for that. Thrift Okay, good. Okay. Diosdado Macapagal, Agricultural Land Reform Code. And he was the president who changed the Independence Day from July 4 to June 12. Okay. Binalik niya. Remember that it was Aguinaldo who declared Philippine independence on June 12, right? 1898. And the Americans, it was only the Americans who suggested that July 4 is their chosen date to give full independence. And from Rojas up to Garcia, July 4 is the Independence Day of the Philippines. And it was Diosdado Macapagal who changed it to June 12. Okay. He's also known for establishing the Mafilindo. Okay. That's the precursor of ASEAN. Okay. Malaysia, Philippines, and Indonesia. Okay. Ferdinand E. Marcos declared martial law. Take note, Proclamation number 1081, September 21, 1972. Prior to this one, there was a constitutional convention headed by Carlos P. Garcia. Okay? 1971, there was a constitutional convention. It was headed by Carlos P. Garcia, but Carlos P. Garcia died 3 days after his election as head of the Constitutional Convention. And he was succeeded by Diosdado Macapagal. Okay? They were both previous presidents during the Constitutional Convention, but martial law was being declared. Okay. He ordered the cancellation of writ of habeas corpus and martial rule. Okay. It's a form of government backed by militaries. Okay. Now, let's go back to the American period. During the American War and the Japanese War, he was the American commander in Bataan who surrendered to Japanese Imperial Army on April 9, 1942. Okay? And his surrender led to Bataan Death March, right? Okay. So he was the commander, Jonathan Wainwright, Edward King, MacArthur, or Masaharu Homa. Edward King. Bataan Commander, Edward King. Corregidor, Jonathan Wainwright. Okay. MacArthur was in Australia during this time when Bataan fell and Corregidor surrendered. Okay. Masaharu Homa was the chief general of the Japanese Imperial Army. Okay. Take note. Bataan Commander, Edward King. Corregidor, Jonathan Wainwright. Okay. Now, remember that when the Treaty of Paris was being signed on December 10, 1898, okay? Signed but not yet ratified. It was signed in Paris, right? Between US and Spain. But the Peace Committee needs to present it to US Congress. It's not been yet ratified. So that's why Aguinaldo sent some Filipino diplomats, no? And it was Felipe Agoncillo who was assigned to go to US and have an official audience with President McKinley and asked him that that Spain has no jurisdiction over the Philippines. Okay? And it has no power or right whatsoever to see the Philippines to US and to recognize Philippines as a country and an independent with its government and with its constitution. Okay? So it was Felipe Agoncillo who went there. Mariano Ponce and Faustino Lichauco was sent to Japan, and Antonio Maria Regidor, I think he was sent to England. Okay. They were Filipino diplomats. Okay. So, Felipe Agoncillo was a Filipino diplomat with the most important assignment, which was to seek official audience with President McKinley to prevent the ratification of the treaty between US and Spain. And take note, it was President William McKinley who declared that who decided that the Philippines should remain under American colony because of his mission as benevolent assimilation. Okay. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, let's review. American commander in Bataan, Edward King. Okay. Corregidor, Jonathan Wainwright. First head of the first Philippine Commission, Dr. Jacob Skerman. Head of the second Philippine Commission, William Howard Taft. First civil governor of the Philippines, William Howard Taft. Okay. Established a judicial system of the country, the Taft Commission. The three military governors of the Philippines, Wesley Merritt, Elwell Otis, and the last, MacArthur. Okay. A Filipino diplomat sent to seek official audience to President McKinley to prevent the ratification of the Treaty of Paris and to recognize Philippines as an independent country, a country with its own government and a constitution. That's Felipe Agoncillo. Okay, let's proceed. A mechanism or arrangement whereby buyers and sellers interact and in the process determine the price and the quantity bought and sold. Automatic market. Not school, not agriculture. We can tell business, but when we are going to talk about the concept in economics, it's market. Okay, very good, Ma'am Cherilyn. Okay. Now later on, we're going to review. We're going to review. Okay. Next, it is the combination of inputs or factors of production in order to make goods and services. Combination of inputs or factors of production in order to make goods and services, that's production. By the way, what are the factors of production? Dara. Factors of production, land, labor, capital. Nay usang na puno. Classical economists considered only 3 factors of production. Considered only 3. Classical economists. But for modern economists, they have considered a 4th factor. It's entrepreneurship. Okay. When we are going to talk about classical economists, 3 factors: land, labor, capital. For modern economists, entrepreneurship is considered as the 4th factor of production. Okay. Workers. Asa man na nabilong ang workers? Be. Labor. Production cost. Production cost. That's the total amount. Capital. Facilities, capital. Okay. Next. It pertains to the topsoil. O, klaro na kayo. Pertains to the topsoil and all natural resources in it. It encompasses the area where factories and bridges are constructed and where minerals, water, and forest resources are located. Land. Okay. Teachers, kaya pa. Okay, land, ha? Topsoil. Natural resources, makitaan daw. Okay, land. Okay. Now, when we're going to talk about durable goods used in the production of other goods and services, machinery, buildings, vehicles, roads, bridges are some of its common examples. Capital. Question, sir, why not include money? Money is not part of capital. Take note, because it is not included in the direct production of goods and services. Okay? When we are going to talk, when we are asked whether or not money is part of capital, the answer is no. Because it does not directly involve in the production of goods and services. The term there, directly. Okay. Sige, next. Refers to the income earned from a capital. Income earned from a capital, tawag interest. Okay. Capital, machineries, buildings, vehicles, roads, and bridges. That's capital. It has something to do with the direct production of goods and services. But income earned from a capital, interest. Income earned from entrepreneurship, profit. Okay, here we go. Land pertains to the topsoil and all natural resources in it. Income earned from a land is called rent. Okay? Income earned from a land, rent. Labor, these are the factors of production. Okay? Labor pertains to the amount of time spent by workers in producing a good or a service. Income earned from a labor is called wage. Income earned from a capital is called interest. Income earned from entrepreneurship is called profit. Okay, let's see. Capital, durable goods used in the production of goods and services. Machinery, buildings, vehicles, roads. Entrepreneurship, the ability to discover profitable opportunities. Income earned from entrepreneurship, profit. Income earned from capital, interest. Income earned from labor, wage. Income earned from rent, income earned from land, rent. Okay. Sige. Income earned from capital, income earned from capital, interest. Okay. Income earned from land, rent. Income earned from labor, that's wage. Income earned from entrepreneurship, profit. Okay. Income earned from capital, rent. Wage, interest, profit. Capital, interest. Land, rent. Labor, wage. Entrepreneurship, profit. Capital, interest. Okay. Income earned from entrepreneurship, profit. Okay, we talked about that one already. When we are going to talk about the area where factories and bridges are located, that's land. when it talks about the amount of time spent by workers in producing, nasa keyword, spent by workers in producing a good or a service, labor. Durable goods used for the production, case. Teachers, can you still hear me? Can you please send some likes or hearts or thumbs up if you can still hear me? I think I need to turn off my uh, camera because of the internet connection. Thank you. I hope you can still hear me. Please comment down yes or hearts or thumbs up. Thank you. Okay, let's proceed. I again lost my internet connection. Sorry for that one, teachers. Sir Lois, madungog ra sir. Okay. Thank you, Mama Redel. Okay. Again, income earned from land, that's rent. Income earned from labor, that's wage. Income earned from the capital, interest. Earned from entrepreneurship, profit. Thank you, Ma'am Rhea, Ma'am Charlene, thank you. Ma'am Jasmine, thank you. I'll be turning off my camera because all of a sudden I'm losing my internet connection. Okay. When we talk about the area where factories, from the word area, okay, land, the amount of time spent by workers, labor. When we are going to talk about the durable goods and services, that's capital. The ability of a person to discover profitable opportunities, that's entrepreneurship. Okay, let's proceed. Now, I said that why is it that money is not included as a capital? In a layman's term, money is considered a capital. But in a formal study of economics, let us take note that money is not considered as a factor of production because it is not directly used in the production process. Not directly used. So, when we are asked in a layman's term, money is a capital. But in a formal study of economics, money is, take note, not considered as a factor of production. Not considered as a factor of production because it is not directly used in the production process. Okay? So those four factors actually of production have a direct effect, no, for in the production process, direct use in the production process. Okay, money is not capital. Money is not a factor of production because it is not directly used in the production process. Okay, next, BJ drinks a glass of water to quench his thirst. This shows that this shows direct consumption. Direct consumption, immediate gratification of our wants. Okay? Utility maximization, when we talk about utility maximization, that's what we can get na, from a product at the total satisfaction that we can get from a product. Indirect satisfaction, consumption, will be asked later. The following question. consumption function, gali. Oh, sige. Give me time. Ang direct consumption, immediate gratification. Okay. When we talk about utility maximization, that is, let's say it this way, the maximum satisfaction or the maximum benefit that we can get out from a product, okay, that we consume. Because actually, when we talk about utility in economics, it's the measure of happiness or satisfaction, or the benefit, or simply the benefit that a person may receive, can receive, no, from consumption. That's utility. So when we talk about utility maximization, it's the maximum satisfaction that a consumer or a person can get from his consumption. Okay? Direct consumption, that's the immediate gratification of one's, okay, immediate satisfaction. Okay? The boy here drinks a glass of water, cold water, because he's thirsty. BJ drinks a glass of water because he's thirsty. Okay? And to quench his thirst, he needs to consume cold water, a glass of cold water. That's direct consumption. When we talk about consumption function, dear teachers, take note, consumption function is the relationship between disposable income and their consumption. Okay. Consumption function, disposable income, and consumption. That's the consumption function. The relationship between disposable income and consumption. Now, we talked about disposable income. What is disposable income? It is the income that remains after subtracting taxes. Okay? The income, disposable income, disposable, magasto, or it can be saved. Okay? So, if the disposable income increases, consumption also increases. Consumption function talks about the relationship between disposable income and consumption. Increase in disposable income, increase in consumption. Okay. So, parallel, not opposite. The same flow. If disposable income increases, consumption also increases. When we talked about utility maximization, it's the total satisfaction that we can get from consumption. In economics, utility is the satisfaction or the happiness derived from consuming a goods or services. Di lang kaunon, no? But including services. Okay. Utility or atong pasimplihin. Let's simplify the meaning of utility. Utility is the benefit we can receive. If we can benefit out of a thing, of course, we are satisfied and we're happy. That's utility. Okay. Now, next. Here, indirect consumption. BJ and LA Corporation buys tons of mangoes from local farmers to make local-made juice to address demands on healthy fruit juices which are locally made. Indirect consumption. The company is consuming mangoes. But the finished product which will be consumed by the consumers are the fruit juices. Okay, indirect consumption. Okay. Let's proceed. When we talked about direct consumption, that's immediate gratification of wants. When we talked about indirect consumption, the finished product is being consumed, not the raw product. The raw product is being processed and then the finished product is being consumed by the consumer. That's indirect consumption. Utility maximization is the total gratification, satisfaction that a person can get out from consuming a good or a service. Take note that utility in economics is the satisfaction or the happiness being felt or received by a consumer out from consuming a good or services, or simply it is the benefit that a person can get after consuming, benefit received from consumption. Let's talk about consumption function. Consumption function, again, is the relationship between and disposable income and consumption. The higher the disposable income, the higher is the capacity to consume. Okay. Disposable income, again, is the income the income remains after subtracting taxes. That's disposable income. So disposable income can be spent for goods and services or it can be saved. Take note. Let's proceed. Again, indirect consumption. Next, refers to the use or utilization of goods and services by consumers in order to address their wants. Utility, it's the happiness or the satisfaction felt or received. It's the benefit received after consumption. Disutility, the opposite of utility. Consumption, the use or the utilization, ginagamit. Wealth effect. Okay, wealth effect. We're going to discuss that one here. Okay. Wealth effect. For example, there were two employees with the same earnings per year. Okay, let's say, for example, the two employees, the example here given, 300,000 a year. At the end of the year, there were two employees. The other one was able to save 80,000 pesos in the bank, while the other one has none. The 300,000 were all consumed. This will allow the one with the savings to have a greater consumption capacity. That's wealth effect. Okay. Now, the person is more likely to have a higher consumption because of his savings. Okay? So, consumption tends to increase with wealth. Okay? So, the employee with the savings has the greater wealth compared to the one with no savings. And so, therefore, his consumption capacity is greater. That's wealth effect. Okay? So, again, consumption, that's the utilization or the consumption, utilization, consumption of goods and services. Okay. Utility, that's the happiness or the satisfaction that a person can get or can benefit after consuming. This utility, the very opposite. The wealth effect is the capacity of a person to have a greater consumption because of increase in wealth. Okay. Next. A decrease in tax rate will increase all demand. Increase in taxes. Okay. Decrease money supply. The increase exchange rate. It has nothing to do with tax rate. Increase money supply. Increase overall demand. Aggregate demand. Okay. Now, for example, if the taxes being paid by employees are way less compared to previous years, of course, the employees have now a greater capacity to consume goods and services. Instead, the money that will be paid for taxes will now be utilized for consumptions of goods and services. So a decrease in tax will increase overall demand. Okay. So take note that in cutting personal income taxes, the government actually is increasing the household's disposable income. Now, we talked about disposable income a while ago. Disposable income is the income after subtracting the tax. Simple logic. Kung maliit ang tax, konti lang yung bawas. And kung konti lang bawas, mas malaki ang pera. If you have greater money, you will have a greater capacity to consume. Okay? So in cutting personal taxes, the government increases the household's capacity or the household's in disposable income. And so therefore, if the household has a greater disposable or a greater disposable income, they have a greater wealth. And greater wealth is synonymous to greater consumption. We talked about that one a while ago. Okay. So if the household now has an increased disposable income, the household will spend some of this additional income on goods and services. Right? Okay? So we can say that a tax cut, or a decrease in tax increases consumption spending and also increases the aggregate demand. So a decrease in tax rate will actually increase overall demand. Okay. Ma'am Nivel Francisco, good evening, ma'am. Ma'am Cherilyn, good evening once again. Ernie, good evening. Good evening, teachers. Okay, let's proceed. Now, there are two fiscal policies that the government can adopt. It's the contractionary fiscal policy or the expansionary fiscal policy. Okay, let's talk about this one later. This might be included in the actual exam, economics, no? Maybe. Okay, the government adopts a contractionary fiscal policy when there is excessive inflation. Contractionary. Okay. Now, let's talk about contractionary fiscal policy. Okay. Contractionary fiscal policy is a decrease in government spending, rise in taxes. Okay? Rise in taxes. Or a decrease in government transfer. If there is high inflation, the government adopts contractionary fiscal policy. Okay. Now, I said that when there is inflation, government adopts a contractionary fiscal policy. The government implements contractionary fiscal policy by increasing taxes on those who earn more than 200,000, not selling government bonds. But a question, sir, what if um, increasing taxes only? Oh, that's the answer. Or it may only say increase in taxes. The government implements contractionary policy by increasing taxes. Okay? Or rise in taxes. Pwede ra pod. Okay. Not increasing government spending because if a contractionary fiscal policy is being implemented by the government, there is a decrease in government spending, not increase. Increase in government spending, that is in the expansionary fiscal policy. Take note. In an expansionary fiscal policy, there is an increase in government spending. Okay? And this is during recessions. Okay? This is, during this time, the economy, why demand is weak and unemployment rate is very high. So the government should adopt expansionary fiscal policy. Okay? Take note. During, or if the government is implementing contractionary fiscal policy, contractionary, there is a wide demand, excessive, and inflation rate is high. Okay, so government expenditure decreases. Okay, decreases, and taxes increase. This will, if the taxes will increase, this will lessen the disposable income of the families. And so, lessening the disposable income of the household will also weaken their capacity to consume and lessening the aggregate demand. That's how the government controls inflation. But if there is recession, there is high unemployment rate, and households are in the state of being less capacitated to consume, the government will be implementing expansionary fiscal policy. Government will spend more, or government expenditures will increase, and taxes are decreasing. You might be asking, how can government expenditure solve unemployment rate? For example, the government will order textbooks. Will government mag-order ng textbook worth 10 million pesos. Okay? This is just one example. To increase in demand for textbook induces company to increase employment, because the government wanted to buy books. So they wanted to buy books for example, for the new school year, 10 million. And for the other company, another 10 million. Say for example, so those companies will hire new employees. Okay? And those employees are now being capacitated to consume because taxes are very low during the expansionary fiscal policy. Okay. Or infrastructures, bridges and roads to enhance production. Engage in business. Okay. So take note that during the expansionary fiscal policies, these are implemented during recessions, when there is high unemployment rate. High employment rate. Demand is weak because households do not have, or let's say, for example, less capacitated to consume. So government expenditures will increase and taxes decrease. Okay. Opposite in contractionary fiscal policy. In a contractionary fiscal policy, demand is excessive, sobra-sobra, and inflation rate is very high. So the government will implement a contractionary fiscal policy through decrease in expenditures and increase in tax. Okay, I hope that's clear. Give me a thumbs up or a heart if it is indeed. Thank you. Uy, only one. Sana yung iba? Where are the others? Okay. Okay, thank you. So I hope um we did able to differentiate expansionary fiscal policy and contractionary fiscal policy. A government will adopt contractionary fiscal policy when there is inflation, okay? But when there is recession, expansionary fiscal policy. Demand is weak, unemployment is very high. Okay? So government expenditure will increase in an expansionary fiscal policy and taxes are being decreased. Okay. In a contractionary fiscal policy, demand is excessive and inflation rate is very high. So the government expenditure is decreased and taxes are increased. Okay, let's proceed. Increasing taxes, that's contractionary fiscal policy. When there is an increase in taxes, there is a less disposable household income. When there is less disposable household income, families have less capacity to consume. Okay. Consumption increases when wealth increases. Okay, those are concepts that we need to understand. So reduction in government spending, reduction meaning less, reduction spending in increase in tax rate will decrease aggregate demand. Take note that in an economic condition where demand is excessive, there is inflation, right? So the government will adopt a contractionary fiscal policy in order to balance once again the economy. Okay, that's the concept, to balance the economy. Okay, so to decrease the aggregate demand, instead of having an excessive aggregate demand, i-lessen ang demand. Okay. Next, let's proceed. If government spending would increase, government spending would increase. That's expansionary or contractionary? Expansionary. Increase. Okay, government spending increase. The deficiency in aggregate demand. There is a weak demand is weak during there is a weak demand, no, in an expansionary fiscal policy when the government is implementing expansionary fiscal policy, because during this economic condition the aggregate demand is very weak. So in order for the government to balance again the demand, not to have a deficit agreement demand, not excessive but balanced, government need to spend to or increase its expenditure and may kulang lower taxes. So the deficiency in aggregate demand will be reduced. Okay. If government spending will decrease, the deficiency in aggregate demand will raise. Lulubo ang deficiency. Okay? So it's just the very opposite. The government needs to spend. Its expenditure needs to increase in order to reduce the deficiency in the aggregate demand. Okay. The government needs to decrease its expenditure in order to lessen the excessive aggregate demand. Okay. Let's review this one again. In an economic condition where wide demand is weak and unemployment is very, very high, employment rate is very high, government expenditure should increase and taxes should decrease. Okay? Take note. Now, in an economic condition whereby wide demand is very excessive and inflation rate is very high, the government expenditure needs to decrease and taxes are to increase to lessen the wide demand or the aggregate demand. So if the government spends or if the government expenditure is high, the deficiency in aggregate demand will be reduced. Okay. Because when increase in government expenditure will give chances to unemployed citizens to be employed. In plus, taxes are decreased. Okay. This policy involves taxes and government spending. That's fiscal policy, automatic. Okay. The government implements an expansionary fiscal policy. Expansionary, okay. The government implements an expansionary fiscal policy to address the bleak condition, or bleak meaning it's a something like a recession, okay, a bad condition of the economy. Okay, not increase. The answer here is wrong. Increasing the interest loans, that's wrong. We need to check here. Okay, now teachers, can you now comment your answer because letter D here is wrong. Okay, so what's the answer of this question for this particular question? The government implements an expansionary fiscal policy. I've reiterated this one many times. Ma'am Jennifer, wala may F diya, ma'am. The government implements an expansionary fiscal policy to address the bleak condition of the economy by expansionary fiscal policy, reducing workers of firms, reducing spending and increasing tax collection, increasing expenditures, and decreasing tax. Okay, teachers, can you now answer? Ma'am Cherilyn, Ma'am Cheremay, Ma'am Jennifer, give me your answers now. Ernie, Maridel. Sige. What's the answer for this particular question? An expansionary fiscal policy is being implemented. The answer is letter C. When a government implements an expansionary fiscal policy, take note, expenditure increases and taxes decreases. Okay? So, Ma'am Cherilyn, Ma'am Jennifer, Ma'am Maridel, Ma'am Cheremay, expansionary, gani, if it is expansionary fiscal policy, expenditure increases, tax decreases. Okay. If contractionary fiscal policy, expenditure decreases, tax increases. Okay? Sige. Now, during the expansionary fiscal policy, the economic condition, demand is weak, and unemployment rate is high. That's why the government needs to implement expansionary fiscal policy. But if there is a need for a government to implement a contractionary fiscal policy, the economic condition is demand is excessive and inflation rate is high. Okay. Now, geography. The biggest country in Asia. Biggest country in Asia, kuno. Sige, the biggest country in Asia is China. Okay, biggest country in Asia, China. So remember, Ani, just remember this mnemonic. Biggest country in Asia, China. East Asia, China. Russia, RNA. RNA. Russia, North Asia. China, CHEA. China, East Asia. Kazakhstan, Kazakha. Kazakhstan, Central Asia. India, ISA. India, South Asia. Again, RNA, Russia, North Asia. Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan, Central Asia. China, CHEA. China, East Asia. India, ISA. India, South Asia. Okay. Biggest country in North Asia? Russia. RNA. Biggest country in South Asia? India. ISA. India, South Asia. Biggest country in Central Asia? Kazakhstan, Central Asia. Okay, RNA, Kazakhstan, CHEA, ISA, Russia, North Asia. RNA, Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan, Central Asia. China, CHEA, China, East Asia. India, ISA. Okay. Going to write it down. Give me a moment. RNA, Kazakh, CHEA, and ISA. Okay. Next. Here. The term civica or civics is derived from the Latin word civis or civicus, which means mamamayan. Okay. That's why we called citizens. Okay. Civicus, mamamayan. So civica or civics came from a Latin word, civis or civicus. It means mamamayan. Okay. Here we have another question. It is a power of state to take possession over private property for public use with just compensation. Take note, private property for public use. If it's a private property, but there is no specific, the government has no specific decision as to whether it can be utilized. No, there is vagueness whether the private property indeed can be used as for public utilization. That's not under power of eminent domain, because the power of eminent domain is a state power to take possession over private property only for public use and with just compensation. Question: the private property is taken for public use. Can the government automatically use it without just compensation? No. The government must pay first before the property could be taken over for public use. Take note. Okay. Here, process where an individual, though neither born, hindi pinanganak, nor a native of a country, may acquire citizenship. That's the process called naturalization. Now, let's discuss hus sanguinis and hus soli or hus luce. From the word sanguinis, meaning blood, it's actually the type of citizenship where that the Philippines is adopting. Okay, when your parents are both Filipinos, so you're a Filipino. If one of your parents is a Filipino, you are a citizen, a Filipino citizen. Ang the hus soli and hus luce is the type of citizenship adopted by the US, the United States. Okay, whether your parents are Americans or not, if you are born in America, you are an American citizen. Say, for example, both of your parents are Filipino, but you're born in America, you are an American citizen based on hus luce. Okay? Naturalization by application is either you are going to file in court or the Congress may award it to you as citizenship. Okay? Take note. Another question. Why did Great Britain, France, and Russia form the Triple Entente in 1907? Take note, they formed the Triple Entente to respond to the increased military power of Germany. Okay. The countries who formed the Triple Entente in 1907, Great Britain, France, and Russia. Okay. And the purpose of the formation of Triple Entente is to respond to the increased military power of Germany. Okay. Here, under the CARP law, Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, the retention limit, say for example, you are a daughter of a hashindero, and in the CARP law, lands will be distributed to farmers and tenants. The retention limit to be awarded to each child. Say, for example, your father owns 50,000. Let's say, for example, 50 hectares. Oh, kana. 50 hectares. And there were only two of you. daughters, you will receive each only 3 hectares. So the remaining land portion will only be 6 hectares. Okay? The 44 hectares will be distributed. So here, to each child, 3 hectares. The answer here is either B or D, 30 square meters. 30 square meters is still 30,000 square meters, still 3 hectares. Okay? Here, a law which made treasonable the advocacy of independence or separation from the United States with a severe punishment by imprisonment or worse, death. Sedition law. Now, I've read a reviewer, and their answer for this one is the brigandage law. The brigandage law is applicable only to those people that can be found going along or associated with groups advocating independence o tinatawag kang bandido, bandits. The reconcentration law is a law whereby communities are settled in one place, no? Known either for thieves or for bandits. That's reconcentration law. Treason law of the Philippines, that's the sedition law. Okay, let's proceed. He was the head of the 1934 Constitutional Convention, which was provided by the Tidings-McDuffie Act for the Commonwealth Government. Claro recto. Cecilia Palma, 1986 Constitutional Convention. Diosdado Macapagal and Carlos P. Garcia, the 1971 Constitutional Convention. The first president of the 1971 Constitutional Convention, Carlos P. Garcia. 3 days after Carlos P. Garcia died, he was succeeded by Diosdado Macapagal. And 1972, sad to say, martial law was being implemented. We have here the different sets of constitution, the Malolos Constitution. But prior to the Malolos Constitution, we have the Biak na Bato Constitution. Okay. Malolos Constitution, 1935 Constitution, no? Headed by the Constitutional Convention. This is the product of the 1934 Constitutional Convention, headed by Claro Recto. The 1943 Constitution during the Japanese government, or the Japanese government constitution, headed by Jose P. Laurel. The 1973 Constitution, or the modified parliamentary form of government. This was the time of martial law. 1986, the Freedom Constitution, and now we have the 1987 until now, which is the present Constitution. Okay. It is a trade route that opens trade around the world and pave way for spreading ideology. Silk Route. The Magellan's Route is known for circumnavigating the world. Caravan, Persian traders. Salt route. This is a route whereby essential salts are carried, no, during trades. But a trade route that opens trade around the world, it's a 4,000 mile that brings China to Europe, to the Roman Empire. Okay, 4,000 mile route, Silk Route. The known route that is said to pave way for spreading ideology, Silk Route. Okay. Next, the tax that is collected based only on income. Tax collected based only on income. Direct tax. Okay. Example of direct taxes: income tax, capital gain tax, property tax, estate tax, gift or donors tax. Okay? Based on income. So, levied directly on people. That's direct tax. Okay? Example of indirect taxes: customs duty tax, excise tax, value-added tax, sales tax. So, ang indirect taxes levied on a particular economic activities. For example, buying of commodities. For example, cellular cell phones or items, luxury items, cars, something like that. Okay, that's indirect. If it is levied on directly on people, that's direct tax. If levied on a particular economic activity, just like uh, buying or importing, that's indirect tax. Okay? Example, again, take down notes. Example of direct taxes. We have income tax. Direct on people man. Levied directly on people. Income tax. Capital gain tax. Okay? It's a profit. Kaning capital gain tax. It's a profit. Okay? Property tax. Value of land, for example. Improvement or personal properties. That's property tax. Estate tax. Transfers from deceased person to legal heirs. That's estate tax. Gift or donors tax. Examples of indirect, again, indirect taxes levied on particular economic activity, not on people. Customs duty, excise tax, value-added tax, and sales tax. Okay. Next question. It is a characteristic that is cultural rather than biological. It is an acquired identity and learned through socialization. Gender. When we say biological trait, sex. When we say acquired identity or cultural, gender. Take note. Okay. Teachers, still 28 viewers. Thank you for staying. I hope you will be learning something this evening. Okay. Despite the fact that it's already 10:30. It is the study of populations with reference to the size and density, mortality, growth, migration, and the interaction, social economic conditions, demography. Who coined the term demography? Akil Gillard. To the 25 viewers, take note that Akil Gillard coined the term demography. Oh, arkansi na tong wala. Wa man na diri, ako na nagisulti. The term demography was coined by Akil Gillard. Demography, study of population, size, density, mortality, growth, migration. Who coined the term demography? Akil Gillard. Achillard. Gillard. Okay. Akil Gillard. Okay. Here. To express that there is no significant difference between the food intake of office workers, teachers, actual question research, and social studies na ay research. Okay? To express that there is no significant difference between the food intake of office workers and food intake of group of teachers is, timanin ninyo, remember, no significant difference, no significant. It is stated in a negative form, automatic. You are going to look for the H sub O statement. H sub O, null hypothesis. Stated here, no significant, negative. the null hypothesis will always be stated in a negative form. Now, question, why is it that Roman numeral 1 is the answer? No significant difference, man. Why is it that not Roman numeral 2? Not equal maning Roman numeral 2. No? No significant difference. Walang pagkaiba. So meaning equal. No significant difference. Null hypothesis. X sub 1, food intake of the office worker. Walang panagkaiba. No significant difference. Parihas between the food intake of group of teachers. X sub 2. Null hypothesis. Basta no significant. Stated in a negative form, null hypothesis. Ang null hypothesis, dili inani. H sub A, alternate hypothesis. Maunanay, equal, not equal sign. Okay? Null hypothesis will always be stated in a positive form. There is a significant difference. May pagkakaiba. Significant difference. H sub A, stated in a positive form, affirmative form, alternate hypothesis. To the 28 viewers, I am going to tell you, when are we going to accept the null hypothesis? If the question will be asking you, when are you going to neglect the null hypothesis? Or when are you going to accept the null hypothesis? Take note. If the calculated t-value, I'm going to type it here, CV, if the calculated tabular value is less than, if the calculated t-value is less than the tabular t-value, take note, if the calculated t-value is less than, it is insignificant. Therefore, accept the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis is stated in negative form. There is no significant difference. If the calculated t-value is less than the tabular t-value, insignificant, no significant, not significant, accept the null hypothesis. Okay, accept the null hypothesis. If the calculated t-value is greater than the t-value, significant, greater, significant, stated in positive form, alternate hypothesis. So what are you going to do with the null hypothesis? Reject the null hypothesis. If the calculated t-value is greater than the t-value, accept the null hypothesis. Most particularly, if the research talks about relationship, correlational, okay, or causal comparative. Okay. If the calculated t-value is greater than the t-value, okay, if the calculated t-value is greater than the t-value, it is significant, therefore, reject the null hypothesis. Okay. Let's proceed. The usual signature of Leonor Rivera when she wrote a letter to Jose, Taimis. Okay? That's the pin name of Lino Rivera. That's her signature when she sent letters to Dr. Jose Rizal. Okay. Next, the last but failed to be published article of Rizal in Diario Tagalog, Revista de Madrid. Los Viajes is published in La Solidaridad, Amor Patrio, Love of One's Country, that's still published in Diario Tagalog. A la Señorita is a poem dedicated to Consuelo. Okay. If Marcelo H. Del Pilar was the founder of Diario Tagalog, the publisher of Diario Tagalog was Basilio Moran. Okay. Basilio Moran. It is the greatest legacy of Israel or the Jewish people to mankind. Monotheism. They were the first group of people who worship one God. Atheism, the belief they don't believe that there is a divine being. Polytheism, a belief in many gods. Paganism, the belief of superstitious God. Okay. He was the father of Protestantism, a former Catholic priest. Father of Protestantism, automatic, that's Martin Luther. Pope Alexander VI, he was the Pope who issued the papal bull for the demarcation line, dividing the world for Spain and Portugal. Remember the Treaty of Tordesillas? The papal bull issued by Pope Alexander VI was the basis for the Treaty of Tordesillas between Spain and Portugal. Take note. Gregorio Aglipay, he was the co-founder of the Philippine Church, Philippine Independence Church, or the Aglipayan Church, together with Isabelo de los Reyes. Okay. The founder of the first labor union of the Philippines, Isabelo de los Reyes. Gregorio Aglipay, co-founder and the first supreme bishop of the Philippine Independent Church. Okay. They were Catholics, but not in communion with Rome. Pope Leo X, he was the Pope who excommunicated Martin Luther. By the way, why is it that Martin Luther was excommunicated? It was due to his 95 Theses, due to his opposition on some church doctrines such as indulgences and purgatories. Take note, no? But he was not excommunicated right then. Okay? He was being called and asked to retract all his claims against the Catholic Church. But he refused. So it was Pope Leo X who excommunicated Martin Luther. Okay. It is defined as the study of the world of Filipinos. Bago to. Defined as the study of world of Filipinos, of being Filipinos, and the different ways of being Filipino. That's Filipinologia. Okay? It is coined by Prospero Cuvar, no, from the Department of Anthropology in the University of the Philippines. Study of the world of Filipinos and being Filipinos and the different ways of becoming a Filipino, of being a Filipino, Filipinologia. Okay. That's our counterpart of Western philosophies, Filipinologia. It was Prospero Cuvar who coined the word Filipinopologia. Filipinologia. Okay. The largest river in the world, Amazon River. Longest in the world, Nile River. Yangtze River, longest in Eurasia. And the longest river in the world to run in one country, only in China. Cagayan River, longest in the Philippines. Again, largest, the Amazon in South America. Nile River, Egypt, longest. Yangtze, longest in Eurasia, and longest in the world running in one country. Cagayan, longest in the Philippines. Okay. And that ends our discussion this evening. Thank you, teachers. I hope you did learn something this evening. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. Thank you so much. Okay, I hope you did learn something this evening. So, for those who are with us tonight, please give us a heart or a thumbs up. Now, actually, this is not the only items that we should have been discussing. But the only thing is, I can't sign into Zoom, so I wasn't able to save or to upload here all the questions. But don't worry, I'll be sending the documents to you na lang, okay? So thank you, teachers. God bless everyone for the September licensure examination. The LCTC family are praying for all of you that you will be passing the licensure examination this September. God bless everyone. Thank you, and goodbye.